Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Harvey Levin here.
Jason?
Derek here.
Wow. I'm stunned by what I heard about 10 minutes ago. We're about to put this up on the website. Jussie Smollett is living in a parallel universe, it seems. And I'm not saying, look, people have been falsely convicted of crimes, right?
Yes.
And I get that. And look, it's possible he was. He certainly thinks that he was. And he's not really addressing some of the issues that came up in the trial. But this is what he said to Sway. And it is so strong. Let's just listen to it, and then we'll kind of dissect it.
It's like finding out that someone is exactly the opposite of who they claim to be. Mm-hmm. And so if I had done this, I'd be a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And I don't think that is that's not really questionable. Mm-hmm. So when people are like, yes, there's a lot of other stuff happening, but that would be really, and again, it's something that I wanted to say, if I had done something like this, it would mean that I stuck my fist in the pain of Black Americans in this country for over 400 years. Mm-hmm. We're not even talking about in Africa, because that's an even deeper, larger conversation. It would mean that I stuck my fist in the fears of the LGBTQ community all over the world. Mm-hmm. I'm not that motherfucker. Never have been. Don't need to be. Didn't need to have some sort of rise in his career. I was on the up and up. I was coming from New York, from doing a table read for my dream role in a Broadway show. I had just optioned the rights to the authorized autobiography of Alvin Ailey. I had just, all of these things that I was creating, there would be no reason for me to do some dumb, corny shit like that. Uh-huh. But people are going to believe what they believe, and what I have to do is I have to keep working.
You have to keep working, and
what I know for sure is every single thing that I auditioned for during that period, I lost. They took it from me. But every single thing that I created myself,
it's being created.
Is being created. Never again will anybody be able to pull my life from under me like a rug.
There you go. Jussie Smollett. Come on, man.
Onward.
So when he says there's no question here that I did not do this, there's no question, it doesn't speak to the jury saying you did it.
What did you expect, Harvey? This is a guy who has painted himself into a corner. He has denied doing this. If he has done this, it is devastating to his career. You don't recover from a lie like this because of the things he's saying. He stuck his fist in the face of the LGBT community, in the pain of Black people. He can't. He is in a corner, and he's in a corner for the rest of his life, and his career hangs in the balance. He can do no other than buy into his own nonsense, in my opinion. The jury found it was nonsense and threw him in jail over it. This is who Jussie has to be for the rest of his life. He can't be contrite over it.
Sure it is. The fact that we're even saying, in our opinion, does a disservice to the evidence that we all saw, does a disservice to what the jury found. This is a
narcissist,
the worst kind of narcissist who can never admit he's wrong, who did a horrible, horrible thing, committed an outrageous crime, perpetrated not just on the Ascendario brothers, but on the city of Chicago, on the American people, maybe just to get a little hyperbolic about it. But it's ridiculous. We shouldn't even be entertaining anything this narcissist says. He committed a horrible crime, and he's going to suffer the sins, the punishment for it, both in terms of the jail time he did, and also in terms of his career. And he's trying to resurrect whatever he can through lies. And so
this display is consistent with pulling off a fraud like this.
Yeah,
he is now pulling off a second fraud, and you're surprised.
Well,
this is who Jussie Smollett is. He will not change.
Well,
he can't.
Okay, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
Would you have made the exact same argument after those tapes came out with Mel Gibson, about Oksana and the Rose Garden and the, I believe he pled no contest where there were issues, he may have struck.
No, I'll tell you why. That's a rage head.
Superstar.
Yeah.
An A-list, top-of-the-line superstar.
But over time,
yeah,
he
could bounce back.
Sure. I guess what I'm saying is, he doesn't have to do this.
I think that's right.
That's what I'm saying. He doesn't have to do this. That if he's creating his own roles, we have seen this for 17 years at TMZ, that nothing succeeds like success. And we have talked about this with music, that, with some exceptions, and I think relatively few, somebody comes out with a hit movie, a hit song, and all of a sudden you start forgiving and you start forgetting. And, if he's doing his own projects, all he needs is for one of these things to hit big and he can reset. He doesn't need to do this.
I completely disagree.
Harvey, do you think that's still the case? Clearly, had he come out initially and said, look, I had a horrible moment, he could have blamed it on whatever.
Just say nothing.
Or say nothing.
That's all I'm saying is say...
Even now, say nothing.
Now say nothing. Just don't say anything. This is sort of like, it's a little different, but Amber Heard, going on television and retrying the case on the Today Show. It's like people don't want to hear that. They heard the evidence. Right. It's like just lay low for a while and things...
Do your projects, build it up.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't think you can lay low below the nature of this kind of crime. Mel Gibson, you brought up. In a fit of rage, those tapes showed a guy who was blinded by rage and saying nasty, nasty things to Oksana, to cops. We know he's a nasty guy. Jussie Smollett is a duplicitous person. And I think it's harder to recover from a crime like this than a crime like rage, where you beat someone necessarily. He is a liar, and people don't like liars. And I just don't think you recover from lying to cops and concocting a fake hate crime. How? Tell me one person who's done that.
You're picking and choosing.
No, but tell me an example. Tell me an example of a liar who recovered.
The N-word and was misogynistic and all kinds of other things.
Nasty, terrible.
Well,
tell me a liar.
And allegedly struck her.
Say it again.
And allegedly struck her.
Awful person. Tell me a liar who was recovered.
Tell me a liar who hasn't. You're asking us to. I mean, we can only.
Well, I'm telling you the nature of the crime. I don't think he can recover.
The people who we know of recovered. I mean, who else has been like Jussie Smollett? Who else has been convicted of the crime of lying before that you're citing that hasn't recovered? I mean, you're just asking us to find an example of something that might
because
not
I don't
exist.
think it exists.
Okay,
Bernie Madoff.
The only reason I wanted to raise it was
recover.
I just found the video a little bit shocking. Okay, we're not going to retry the case, damn it. Okay, I want to get into Travis Scott. This sounds silly on a level. He bought a $5.5 million car, a Bugatti. And that's fine.
That is silly.
He's got a lot of money. There are people who buy them. I'm not talking about whether paying that kind of money for a car is silly. What I'm asking about is waving a red flag in front of a bull. Mm-hmm. He is now facing lots of lawsuits over Astroworld, right?
Right.
So, look, he's certainly entitled to live his life, and he's doing that. I mean, he's going back on concert tour. He is, buying what he wants to buy. He's going out. And that's certainly his right. What I'm wondering is, when you buy a $5.5 million car, all these plaintiffs' lawyers are looking at this, right?
Should be going to TJ Maxx like Amber Heard.
No. I'm not even saying that. It's that lawyers get animated when they see that the person on the other end has money. And do you want to underscore that? Not about the victims, about the lawyers, because it animates them a lot. Now they're thinking, whoa, he's got this kind of money?
I think the fact he's got this kind of money, number one. Number two, I'm not sure this isn't relevant for proving punitive damages. If he is found to be liable for his crimes, and
not crime, don't say crimes.
Sorry, liable for his actions, and punitives are assessed by the jury. The purpose of punitives is to punish people up to an amount that they actually feel it.
But I don't see how. I agree with you, but I don't see how this. You get punitive damages for fraud, oppression, or malice. This was.
How about callous disregard for the lives?
I don't think.
Beyond.
I mean, this is a guy rolling around in Bugattis. Juries could be swayed by
what he does
like
after the fact is irrelevant to the trial. It's irrelevant to whatever happens. So what he did on stage. I don't think punitive damages play in this.
Well, if he's found to be more than negligent, it plays. If there's a jury finding
given the circumstances of what happened here.
Well, if there's a jury finding that he knew what was happening and proceeded forward anyway.
He saw the ambulances. He continued performing.
The cops didn't see it. I don't see how they're going to stick it.
Factually, I agree with you. But going back to the original point, this is a bad look for him. I think to spend so lavishly and so sort of openly on such a high-priced item, I think it's a bad look given that 10 people died.
Now, on the flip
And-
side, he doesn't think he did anything wrong.
Yeah.
So he is trying to maybe present
That's
a
right.
face of, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm going to continue living my
that's a
life.
fa-
I'm a very, very famous rapper. I make a lot of money, and here it is.
And that's all true. The only problem is, what happens when lawyers go. It's
Yeah.
you know.
yes, the
that's right.
optics, for lawyers and
And,
everyone.
and look, I believe that Travis Scott believes he did nothing wrong. And I think there is a good argument on his side, given that the police didn't know. So that all said, it doesn't matter if the other side smells blood in the water.
Right.
Yeah.
And they do. And plaintiffs' lawyers are known for smelling that blood.
Speaking of blood
There's
in
a
the
puddle of
water,
it.
have you guys been following what's going on January 6th? Because I got to say, these hearings are devastating for Donald Trump and all the people around him. Just really devastating that, when you see poll workers, people who just were doing their civic duty, having their lives destroyed because they became tools of Donald Trump, calling them out by name, some of them,
Yep.
and then causing them to flee their homes, getting death threats. I mean, you listen to these people, and number one, to me, it's just appalling that you would make people your pawn that way. But number two, good luck finding poll workers now.
Yeah.
And that is borne out now by some evidence that one of the people in the hearing yesterday said every single poll worker who was there in 2020 is not there anymore.
Once again, the bringing about the potential fall of our democracy here.
Yeah.
By poll workers are an essential cog in this giant wheel of elections that we have, and the fear that they felt is remarkable. I got to say, Democrats are a bumbling idiot of a party most of the time. They're doing a very effective job painting a case. They brought these witnesses on yesterday who tell very compelling stories of losing their
The
livelihoods.
whole hearing has really been
They've done a
tight
really
and
nice
compelling.
job. And these two women especially, who their lives have been destroyed based purely on the fact that they happened to be there on the night of the election helping to count ballots. Nothing more. And
they did nothing wrong.
they did absolutely nothing wrong.
No. They're the definition of like innocent people in all of this. They were just trying to
counting
further
ballots,
democracy.
and all of a
Yeah.
sudden, the president of the United States is naming them by name as engaging in a fraud. They don't even know what he's talking about. People are making death threats against them. They've had to close their businesses. The mother had. It's a remarkable disservice. to
And
these
then
people.
you hear, I believe this was Missouri, that these fake electors were hiding out were going to hide out in the Capitol building to basically get in there and cast a vote for Donald Trump, even though he didn't win. It's unbelievable.
But let me ask you, you guys say it's been effective. I agree. The presentation of the evidence is astounding if you're of a certain mindset inclined to believe it. Or do you think they're shouting into an echo chamber? Are you going to change hearts and minds on this issue?
Well,
do you
there's a
think?
poll.
'Cause
There's a
I'd
poll.
like to believe you are. It's
There's
pretty
a
good.
poll that came out that I still
we talked about it yesterday.
I don't
It's
quite
incredible.
understand how it all aligns, but 58%, this is, I believe, an ABC poll, that 58% of the American public, the polls, the people polled, want Donald Trump prosecuted. That would include some of his supporters because 58% cuts into that.
Although he's got that, what is it,
He's got that
42% strong?
Well, but we that's borne out by the testimony, right? The Democrats have called a parade of Republicans,
Almost all Republicans.
almost all Republicans, all of whom have said he committed what they feel to be crimes. And so that's borne out in the numbers that we're talking about. Obviously, all Democrats do. That's partisan. But you have a sizable swath of independents and Republicans who feel that as well. Are they shouting in an echo chamber? Largely, yes. Although, remember, he won the first election based on he's lost popular vote both times, won the first election very closely in the Electoral College, and lost the second one less closely in the Electoral College.
Popular vote's irrelevant.
Popular votes are relevant, but it shows his status in the country, and so there are people on the margins that might be affected, and that turns the election.
Yeah,
right?
if anyone is persuadable, they have done a tremendous
Well,
job. I agree with you. The
I
presentation has been tight. It's been
I think there's one
emotional.
There's one smoking gun, and look, I don't know what they're going to show here.
Yeah.
But they are going to have a hearing devoted to what Donald Trump was doing during that 2.5 hours that he did nothing as the insurrectionists were rioting inside the Capitol. And it reminds me, funny, and I read an article on vacation about the photographer who took that picture of the little girl who was napalmed in Vietnam, and how that changed the war. It changed the attitude of the war. That image changed everything. And, you know, they interviewed him. They interviewed the woman who's now like in her 50s. And I was thinking, if there is an image of Donald Trump sitting with his feet up on the desk, smiling at the television with a Diet Coke, as you're watching the chaos on TV, or the outtakes of Donald Trump, there were 4 outtakes when he finally asked people to leave, and you got to wonder what he said in the first 4. Yeah. To me, that's something atmospheric, but that really could make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, images are powerful.
And by the way, there's a British filmmaker who is now
11 hours.
11 hours of footage. He was allowed access to the president, and today
And the family.
and many of the president's advisors came along and said, we had no idea this guy was there. So it's 11 hours of footage that was not approved by anybody else in the Trump administration, that was supposed to be for a documentary. It has now been turned over to the January 6th committee, that has never been seen by anybody.
I think it's a double-edged sword, though, right? You present this stuff, and if it doesn't have the impact, you feed into Donald Trump's narrative of, they're making a mountain out of a molehill. This is me drinking a Diet Coke. What do you expect me to do? I'm leading. I had to have a sip of a beverage. It's tough, because it has to be powerful enough to cut through. And if it is not, Donald Trump will use it.
It's already powerful.
Yeah.
To a certain segment of the population. I can't get past the idea that his people will see this and have an entirely different reaction.
No. He's got his 42% on lockdown. But he didn't win the election with those.
And will the middle give a shit? Sorry, care.
They seem to. I don't know. They seem to.
We'll see.
Anyway.
Yeah. Fascinating.
It is really interesting. It is.
This is the most fascinating thing since Watergate, to see this sort of play out publicly.
Well, and I have to say, they have done such a good job presenting this. And, you know, it's for just one last thing, and then we got to move on.
Makes Watergate looks like child's play, huh?
No, Watergate was not child's play. Watergate was really serious.
Corrupting the whole nation.
This is more serious.
Way more serious.
I mean, this is
not even close.
This is more serious because, you know, now I'm wondering, you know,
Watergate was the loss of innocence, but the crime itself wasn't that interesting.
Put hidden microphones into his opponent's conference rooms to hear what their strategies were.
He played some dirty tricks.
It was.
He didn't try to run over the Capitol building.
He tried to overthrow an election.
That he didn't even need to. That he won in a landslide. No, he just tried to listen in on the Democrats.
He was bugging the Democratic headquarters.
He said creep in there.
This was not to rig the election. He was bugging to get information.
To get an unfair advantage in the election.
Yeah.
Which he didn't end up needing because he won in a landslide.
That's irrelevant.
It wasn't rigging.
No.
But what he did was horrendous compared to this. I mean, the fact that we're having discussions now, and that, you know, it just shocks me that we are now having real discussions about the legitimacy of elections. This is what happens in countries with dictators and all. And I mean, look, I've been around for a long time, and that's never been even in people's heads. And now it's front and center.
Yep.
About are we ever going to have another election that isn't just willed or rigged?
Yep.
And people are legitimately talking about it, as they should. But that's where we are right now.
Free and fair elections are the only thing that matter. When we invade other nations and try to set up nation building, as we call it, the first thing we look at is elections. Do they run free and fair elections? That's the only thing that matters for a democracy.
This is
terrifying.
Terrifying.
It's terrifying.
Okay.
Great uplifting note to end on.
We're not going to end on that.
Oh, we have one more.
We do have one more. So Elon Musk. I want to talk about this just because of a book that I read when I was on vacation. But his daughter, his 18-year-old daughter, who is now going in for a legal name change and gender change, on her birth certificate says she wants nothing to do with Elon, and his ex-wife, the mother of their kid, is co-signing on what her daughter is saying.
Right.
The mother is Justine. It's so interesting, and I don't want to do a book report, but I read this book, and it was actually a book about Elon Musk's genius, but they also talked a little bit about his personality.
Yeah.
And he this weirdly pursued Justine for 10 years. And they met in college, I believe University of Pennsylvania, and they were kind of on and off, and he was just really aggressively pursuing her. Toward the end of their marriage, now this is according to the book, Elon, they were having marital problems. They had a son who died very young, I think 6 months old. And he didn't want to talk about it. She wanted to process it. He said, the solution is let's just have more kids, and would never open up about it. And they started having problems. I believe went to a therapist. And at one point he said, this is either going to work or not going to work. And by the end of the day, we got to know. And if we don't solve this by the end of the day, I'm going to get a divorce. And he actually did. He filed for divorce the next morning. He also...
He's the consummate CEO. He's an
but
executive.
He went to her right before they got married and said, I believe it was PayPal. They said, PayPal wants you to sign this. It's not me. This is not a prenup. Well, it was a prenup. And she signed it. And there were a lot of bitter feelings at the end of this marriage.
Shades of Steve Jobs with his first wife. You ever heard about Steve Jobs and his first wife?
And his first daughter.
And his first daughter?
Yeah, I mean...
Watch out who your heroes are,
exactly,
right?
exactly. It plays out the same way.
But it's just interesting that, I mean, he really is a guy who could change the world.
He has changed the world
He
in
has.
a very meaningful way, and he could change it even more.
And you know what's interesting about
He's
it?
also a complete asshole, though. That's consistent.
Yeah, you know, I mean...
Oh,
when
come
you say,
on, Harvey.
when
Steve
you-
Jobs was the same way. Revolutionized the world.
To say that Steve Jobs is this linear stick figure is ridiculous. I mean, Steve Jobs was a Buddhist. He practiced the Zen. I mean, he
Pretty horrific towards his first wife and daughter. Pretty horrific.
And employees.
And employees, and Steve Wozniak. And the stories are legion.
yeah, but you know, to say
That he combed some sand in his
read-
office.
you should-
I don't think forgives those things.
You should read this book. I mean, it's really because no, because it shows a dimension of Steve Jobs that's very different. And all I'm saying
it's
is
complicated.
they're complicated people. But Elon's really interesting to me because what they're saying in the book, I'm sorry for getting off on this, but I've just found it so interesting. Steve Jobs created new stuff.
Yes.
Like transformatively new stuff. Elon Musk has been derivative in many ways, that there was already an electric car, there was already a rocket. He made them better.
Yeah.
And that's still a huge accomplishment. But it's just it's a different way of looking at the.
I prefer not to split those hairs. What Elon Musk has
Oh, but
accomplished.
no, it's huge.
Is to me.
But he is
it's,
traveling where people have traveled before. He's on the shoulders of those giants and jumping
But
higher.
it's even in a way, it's equally. I was going to say more.
Maybe
it's not
more.
more because
It's
he
just
came
different.
along-
All I'm saying is it's different.
I've said this before. GM and Ford and Honda and Toyota and these car companies that are worth hundreds of billions of dollars have invested tens of billions of dollars over the years to try and create an electric car. Here comes this wild-eyed guy who has no real experience except for education, comes along, and in a matter of 5 years did what these mega companies couldn't do in generations.
Right, and similarly, NASA. We just accepted the fact that you launch a
limits,
rocket,
yeah.
you launch a rocket, and then it goes into the ocean, never comes back. And Elon Musk's feeling is, you fly from LA to New York, you don't throw out the Delta plane.
Yeah.
And he figured out how to land the booster where NASA couldn't do it in 50 years.
Look, he has a certain
It's
degree of
amazing.
professional brilliance, but to get back to this story, we see these documents from time to time about name changes. I never, ever, and I don't know if you've seen one where it takes a deliberate shot at
No,
the father. Usually it's about my identity has changed and I want to move forward.
I have
Very
not.
positive. This is a direct shot
It was
at her
aggressive.
father
It was
in
aggressive.
a name change
Oh,
petition.
she clearly hates her
him.
father.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's never a good sign.
No.
And it can,
I mean, that's true. Okay, we will see him. I'll see you Friday.
Thanks.